was coming into stores with me, and he would just like sit like in like the place where you sit and you wait for someone to try on their clothes. They come out, you know, they show them to you, they're like, oh my god, look at me, you know, period sis, you look so good. Yeah, he was yeah, so it was like a little weird for me, you know. It was super weird whenever I was trying on bathing suits and I wasn't coming out because I felt awkward and weird. And he's like, it's taken you a while to put on those bathing suits, you know, like do you need a bigger size or do you need a smaller size? And I'm like, no, I already tried a few of them on, you know, I'm good. And he was like, oh, well, you didn't show me. And I'm like, what the fuck? So, you know, and then I'm like, oh, you know, like, I didn't know if you wanted to see them. He was like, yeah, I definitely want to see them. So I'm like, okay, do you want me to try them on again? And he's like, only if you feel up to it. He was like, but I would love to see them. So I'm like, okay. A little bit weird, but okay. So I tried all of them on again, and I came out, and you know, he was telling me which ones he thinks were good, which ones he thinks were ugly. Yeah, and it was weird because every single one that he thought was ugly was like low-key family appropriate. Yeah, I was getting a little bit weirded out, but then I was like, I've known him my whole life. He's not no freaking I don't even know if I could say it in this video, but you guys already know what I'm getting at. Anyways, and then he took me to this one dress store, right? And the only time I had ever been to this dress store was whenever I was buying my graduation dress, because this place is really expensive. And he was like, I want you to pick out a dress here. And I was like, well, isn't this stuff like really expensive? He was like, yeah, but it's fine. You know, we're gonna go to a really nice dinner one night. You know, it's your birthday / college vacation, you know, we're gonna make it special. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I went in there and I picked out the dress. I didn't get his opinion on anything that had to do with the dress, you know, because there were a lot of skimpy dresses in there, you know, and I just like was not about it. So fast forward, you know, we're done shopping. We're actually on the plane at this point, and you know, we're talking, and he's asking me if I have any boyfriends or any guys that I like and that I'm interested in pursuing. And I'm like, no, I don't really think anybody really likes me like that, ha ha ha. And then he grabs my hand all serious, and he's like, I don't ever want you to talk about yourself that way. You are the most beautiful girl that I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, low-key feeling weird. I'm like, you know, because like this just felt way too intimate for my liking. And I thought that something was wrong with me because I'm looking at him less of like a person who's like, this sounds gross now, but like a father figure. And now I'm starting to question whether I have a crush on him. So then he goes and he puts his hand on my thigh and he rests his head back and falls asleep. And I'm just like, yo, what the actual? So, you know, we get to the hotel and we put our stuff in there, and I'm looking around and I realize there's only one bed. Yeah, one bed for a week-and-a-half vacation. So at this point, things just keep getting weirder and weirder, you know. Like whenever I was younger and I used to sleep over their house, you know, I used to sleep in the bed with him and Ashley. But I am 19 years old. No. No. So we get in there and he's like, oh crap, I must have ordered the wrong suite, you know, they must have put us in the wrong room. So, you know, he calls down there, he's like, hey, like, I'm pretty sure that I ordered the wrong room. Do you guys have any suites available that have 2 beds? And they were like, no, I'm sorry, like, we're all booked up until next week. Yeah. So he gets off the phone and he's like, you know, I don't mind sharing a bed, but if you don't want to, then I could just sleep on the floor. I felt low-key really manipulated, I'm not gonna lie, because it's like, obviously, you know, I'm not gonna make you sleep on the fucking floor, okay? So I'm like, I'm not gonna make you sleep on the floor, you know, it's fine, I don't mind, even though I really did. Well, later on we go out to dinner that night, right? And we're at this bar and we're both drinking and we get to talking and he's like, listen, I don't know what it is, but ever since you've turned 18, I've been super attracted to you and I really don't want you to think this is weird. Too late. Because obviously I think this is fucking weird. And it's even weirder that while he's saying this, he's rubbing my lower thigh, like right above the knee. Kind of weird. And so I just don't know what to say. And I'm like, oh, you know, like, yeah, I feel the same about you. And he's like, oh God, really? Oh my goodness, thank God. Because I was so embarrassed. Oh. Like, you should be. You really should be. He's like, I just think you're one of the best people I've ever met. I think about you every single day, almost all day. You know, and Ashley gets jealous sometimes because of how much I talk about you, but I just can't help it. And that's whenever I ask, I'm like, yeah, how does Ashley feel about all this? Like, does she know how you feel, or have you just been keeping those feelings to yourself? And he's like, well, like I said, she's jealous of you, so like I haven't been able to admit my feelings. And I'm like, oh my God, you poor thing. Like, that must be so terrible to hold in all those feelings. And he's like, yeah, it really is. Like, I'm really happy you understand. Okay, bud. So eventually, after a few drinks and a lot of weird conversations, we go back to the hotel room and I go to get dressed into my pajamas, but then I realize there is no door. There are no doors. None whatsoever in this hotel room. None. So that's cool, right? Yeah, that's amazing. So I tell him like, hey, I'm gonna go get changed on the balcony real quick, you know. And he's like, you don't have to, you know, we're all adults here. And I'm like, yeah, but Ashley might not feel comfortable with us getting changed in the same room. I mean, we're already sharing the same bed, and you just admitted you had feelings for me. And this really upset him. Okay, like after this, he's moving things around aggressively, mumbling and whispering to himself. So then after that, of course, I'm afraid to like, you know, say anything else that might hurt his feelings. So I just get into bed and go to sleep. And then I wake up in the morning and he is cuddling me, full on cuddling me. So I didn't know what to do. Should I wake him up? Should I get up? If I get up, I'll wake him up. Or do I just pretend I'm sleeping until he wakes up? I pretended to sleep until he woke up. So he woke up about like 20 minutes later. So he got up, we got changed, and we went and did a few of the activities that we were supposed to participate in that day. And then we went back to the bar, we had a few more drinks, and listen, I don't know what the they put in these mixed drinks in like different countries, but listen, I pretty much blacked out for 5 hours straight. Next thing I remember is waking up on the bed under the covers next to him with no clothes on. And I turn over and I look at him and he's sleeping. And then I turn over and look at my nightstand. There's an open condom wrapper. Yep. And then I go on my phone and I see that he had texted me something. We took videos. Yep. And it was my idea. So when he wakes up, you know, he's like, oh my God, I had a lot of fun with you last night. And I'm like, I'm sure you fucking did. So I'm like super weirded out, as anybody would be in my situation. And now that a few years have passed since this situation, I definitely can tell that he was grooming me, you know, like now that I'm older. But back then I was blind. Like this whole week, you know, he would just make me feel really uncomfortable. And anytime that he saw he was making me uncomfortable, he would just buy me a bunch of stuff and like make me think that all of this was okay, you know. He's like, Ashley and I have been having issues now for a while anyways, you know. She just doesn't want to tell you because she didn't want you to be upset about her and I splitting up. Like the day after we had slept together, I was like really off and really weird about it, and he could definitely tell. And he's like, hey, you know, for your birthday, you know, I wanted to get you some things, but I want you to pick them out. So he put his computer in front of me and he let me order a bunch of stuff off of luxury websites, you know. And then he was like, by the way, like I know your parents didn't get you a car like you wanted. He's like, what car would you think of getting if you got one? And he bought the car for me. Let's just put it that way. A very expensive car for me. Bought it outright. Brand new. And of course, you know, he did all this so that way I would feel normal about like all of this stuff, you know. I wouldn't think that any of this was weird. You know, he's pretty much bribing me with money. Anyway, so eventually I'm participating in all this stuff with him willingly, you know. We're going out on dates. He's pretty much acting like he's my boyfriend and I'm acting like I'm his girlfriend. You know, like we hold hands, we do stuff back at the hotel room. And then he said that we needed to have a talk before we left. And I'm pretty sure that he was like gonna break up with me. So, you know, it's 3 or 4 hours before we have to be on our flight back home. And he's like, listen, I need to know if you feel the same way, okay? I don't want to be with Ashley anymore. I want to be with you. Ashley and I aren't even really married, so it won't even be hard for me to get out of that situation with her. And you could just tell your parents that you're going off to college, and then we'll go and we'll move somewhere far away. Whatever house you want, it's yours. Even if you wanted to go to college, we could move to wherever you wanted to go. You won't be stuck going to some college that you can only go to because that's the only one your parents can afford. We'll buy a house there and then you'll just go to school there. And I was like, this is all a lot to take in, so like I want a few days to think about it. you know? And he's like, all right, fine, but like I need to know ASAP. So, you know, I am thinking about this, and like I feel like the only reason why I had been thinking about it was because, like I said, at this point in my life, I was pretty much like exiled by all my friends. Like I was shunned by them. They would not talk to me, they would not speak to me, and I didn't really have anybody else in my life, you know? So at this point it's seeming like the best decision. You know, what's that saying, like desperate times call for desperate measures? I think, I don't even know if like that would be a good saying to use here. And he's like, all right, as soon as you know what you want to do, you need to text me so that way we can get everything in order. So I'm like, all right, whatever, you know, get home, go to Ashley's house, because my mom said that they were all outside having a fire. And I thought it was going to be easier to see Ashley than it actually was, because when I got there, I really couldn't even look at her. Like, I felt sick. So, you know, they're all asking me how the trip was, and I'm just standing there like feeling like I'm gonna fucking puke. And I didn't mean to act awkward, but everybody could tell that I just was not being myself. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually feeling like super sick. I ate something on the plane that just hasn't been sitting right, you know? I need to go to bed, and I'll tell you guys about it later, okay? Got myself out of that one. They're like, okay, honey, you know, go do what you need to do. We'll talk later. So, you know, I go upstairs and I'm like panicking like really bad. So I call Robbie and he answers the phone. He's like, hey, is everything okay? And I'm like, no, I feel like they know everything. And he's like, oh God, did you say something? And I was like, no, I didn't say shit, but still, like they can definitely tell that I was acting awkward. So the next day I come down to eat breakfast with my family and they're all asking me how the trip was, you know, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden my mom gets a call from Ashley. And all I hear whenever she answers the phone is screaming and crying. And my mom's like, okay, calm down, you know, come over, we'll talk about it, like, just chill out for a second, take a breather. And the last thing I hear Ashley say is my name, and my mom gives me the look. If you don't know what the look is, you are lucky, okay? The look is whenever they tilt their head down and they stare at you with their eyebrows raised. Like kind of like that. I can't even do it right. I literally can't do it right, but it's literally the mom death stare that could literally put you 6 feet under, literally. So, you know, she hangs up the phone and she's like, is there anything else you want to tell me that happened on the trip? And I look at her and I'm like, no, why? And she's like, well, Ashley found a bunch of condoms in Robbie's suitcase and some of them were used. And I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with me? Like what, you know? Kind of trying to talk her into being like, you know, Robbie, you know, cheated on her or something. I have no idea what the heck she's talking about. And she's like, all right, well, we'll see. She was like, but if you have anything to do with this, she was like, your ass is grass. So then I pull the whole, you're really not gonna believe me card. And then, you know, I run upstairs and I call Robbie and I'm like sitting there on the phone.
Hey.
Hi, how is it?
It's amazing, but wait, can you talk for a sec?
And guess who answers the phone? None other than Ashley.
Bro, you tripping?
She's like, hey, you cannot call this fucking number anymore. She was like, I'll be over to talk to you, your mother, and your father in 5 minutes. So 10 minutes goes by, nobody's at the house yet, so I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Hopefully she, you know, like, had just like a moment of clarity where she realized that it couldn't have been my fault or me. Then I get a call from Robbie. And I answer and I don't say anything just in case, you know, it's Ashley calling. And he's like, all right, so Ashley knows everything. Now it's your choice. We can stay here and deal with the repercussions of what we did. Or we can do what I said before, which is pack our shit up and leave. Or we don't even have to pack anything. I'll buy us all new stuff and we'll leave. So at that point, you know, I'm even more convinced that I should just run away with him. But then I'm also like, well, maybe I should see what Ashley has to say. He was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna be there for that. And he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna give you till 8 o'clock tonight to make your decision because I'm going to New York at 11 o'clock and you can decide whether you want to come with me or not. So my mother calls me downstairs to the kitchen while I'm on the phone with him and I'm like, all right, I think she's here. I gotta go. Bye. I'll text you. So, you know, and the worst part is I walk down the stairs, right? And down the stairs leads you straight into the kitchen. So they're sitting there at the island, you know, and my dad and my mom are facing me and they're just staring at me. And then Ashley, she turns around and she's just staring at me too. So, you know, she starts talking and she's like, you know, first I had thought that he was cheating on me with someone random, you know, because sometimes he has slip-ups whenever we go on vacation and he gets too drunk. but when I ask him about these things, usually he's truthful, and he denied everything this time. That was the first red flag. And then I went through his phone and I saw a video of you screwing my husband in the hotel room. Yeah, yikes, I forgot about that one. So now my mom and my father are staring at me like I'm some sort of whore. And my mom's like, so do you have anything to say for yourself at all? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, Ashley. Like, I did not want any of this stuff to happen. He kept doing stuff to make it seem like everything that we were doing was okay, because he said that you and him were having issues and we're gonna get divorced anyways. And when I did feel bad and try to talk to him about it, he would just manipulate me with money and trying to buy me things. And then all of a sudden she starts screaming at the top of her voice. She's like, stop trying to play the fucking victim. She's like, you're a whore. You know exactly what you're doing. You're 19 years old. It's not like you're 16 years old. So at this point, I'm like, all right. She's like, you'll never be allowed at my house, around my husband, or blah, 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 blah. Just a whole bunch of bullshit. So then I look at her and I was like, well, I won't need to come over to see your husband anymore because we're going to be living together. He wants to leave you. He's going to leave you. And him and I are going to be going to New York tonight at 11 o'clock. And then that's whenever I spin around, run up the stairs just in case, like, you know, somebody tries to attack me, like get eaten by the wolves, you know. But what happens? The three musketeers run after me and they're like screaming and yelling, trying to stop me. And my dad's like, if you leave, I'm not paying for your college. And Ashley and my mom kind of looked at him like he's stupid because they already knew that Robbie was going to pay for it. So what did I do? I grabbed the check out of my book bag and I throw it at him. You can keep that $5,000 because it's not even going to put a fucking dent in my student loans. Also, Robbie's going to be paying for everything. So thanks though. And then I walked past them, like I literally made a path, like freaking just walked into them, you know. And as soon as I go to walk away, Ashley grabs my arm and she looks at me and she's like, you are not gonna walk out that fucking door. She was like, no matter how much pain this situation has caused me, I still look at you like you're my daughter. And what he did to you on that trip was disgusting. He lied and manipulated you. He bribed you. And I should be screaming at him right now and not you. And I'm so sorry for all the things that I said to you earlier. I'm just really heartbroken about everything right now. So I turn and I look at her and I'm like, that sounds like a you problem. Rip my wrist from her and I start running again. And Robbie's already waiting outside because I gave him the go ahead text, you know. And he's sitting outside in a black Escalade waiting for me, you know, in the back seat with the driver in the front, you know, bougie as fuck. And then, you know, I get in the car and everybody's like standing, you know, in the driveway of my parents. And I throw my phone out the window for them because I don't need their shit now. So as we're like slowly driving away, Ashley is running after the car, screaming, throwing her shoes at the car, you know, screaming, we need to talk, blah, 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 blah. So then, you know, he's like, all right, stop the car. You know, they slow down, they stop. And I'm not gonna lie, I mean, it is really scary to see how mean he could be to somebody who he's been married to for over 20 years. He was like, what do you mean? What divorce papers? We were never fucking married. And she was like all surprised and like shocked. And he was like, yeah, I already knew you were gonna try to take everything if I left you. And he's like, but you know what? I'm gonna be generous. He was like, I'm gonna give you 3 months before I put the house up, so you can pack all your shit and get out. So after that, him and I went to New York. We spent a few nights at a hotel there. And then we ended up buying a house somewhere. We got married. We actually got married though. And it's been 2 years and my family's still trying to get in contact with me. And I stalk them on Facebook now and then. And I'm pretty sure that Ashley is actually living with them. But, you know, they just keep asking me to come home. And I'm pretty sure they realized that telling me to come back and live with them was not going to work. So they were like, can you please at least just come visit us? Like, we miss you so much. You know, you're our only kid. They're not mad at me anymore. But what they don't know is I'm 7 months pregnant with twins that belong to Robbie.